Before we start, take a moment to like and subscribe. What happens when a small, unproven kid with nothing but a slingshot steps up to face a giant that has an entire army shaking in its boots? This isn't just a story from a dusty old book. It's the ultimate underdog tale, filled with unexpected twists and a moment of courage that changed the course of history. This is the story of David, the shepherd boy, and his legendary battle with Goliath. Our story starts not with a mighty warrior, but with a humble shepherd boy named David. He was the youngest son of Jesse from Bethlehem, a town so small it was often overlooked, a simple village nestled in the rolling hills of Judea, while his 7 older brothers were tall, strong, and off serving in King Saul's army. David's role was to tend to his family's flocks. It was a lonely, quiet job that most would find tedious, but for David, it was a classroom. Day in and day out, he spent his time alone with the sheep, learning to be patient, observant, and resourceful. It was in those quiet, sun-drenched moments on the hillsides that he honed his skills with a shepherd's sling. It was more than a toy. It was his primary tool for protection. He wasn't just good, he was incredibly accurate. He would spend hours practicing, able to hit a moving target with pinpoint precision. Whether it was a small stone he threw in the air or a darting jackal trying to approach his flock. But his duties weren't just about protecting the sheep from small predators. The land was wild, and on more than one occasion, David had to face down a lion or a bear that came to snatch a lamb. He fought them with nothing but his staff and his sling, relying on courage and faith to drive them off or kill them. These solitary battles prepared him for a fight far greater than he could ever imagine. Little did anyone know that his time as a shepherd, a role considered lowly by many, was preparing him to be the champion his people desperately needed. The Philistine army and the Israelite army were locked in a tense and terrifying stalemate in the Valley of Elah for 40 days. This standoff continued, a war of nerves that was slowly crushing the spirit of the Israelite soldiers. Every morning and every evening, a hulking figure would emerge from the Philistine ranks to the valley floor. His name was Goliath of Gath. He was a champion not just of his army, but of his entire nation. He wasn't just big. He was a walking, breathing nightmare, a mountain of a man towering everything else. He was encased from head to toe in gleaming bronze armor that weighed over 125 pounds, a weight that would have crippled most men. The bronze helmet on his head and a massive coat of scale mail on his torso made him appear invincible. His legs were protected by bronze greaves and his back by a bronze javelin. The shaft of his spear was as thick as a weaver's beam, and the head of the spear alone weighed a staggering 15 pounds. With a man carrying his shield before him, Goliath would stalk into the middle of the valley and scream insults at the Israelite army. "Choose a man. Let him come and fight me. If he can kill me, then we will be your slaves. But if I kill him, you will be ours." His voice was like thunder, and with each taunt, the Israelite army would recoil. Paralyzed by a fear so profound that even King Saul himself was too terrified to move. This wasn't just a physical threat. It was a psychological one, and the Philistines were winning without a single arrow being fired. One day, David was sent by his father to the battlefield to bring supplies to his older brothers. He arrived to find the entire army huddled in a state of terror. The familiar sound of Goliath's taunts echoed through the valley, and David's heart sank as he saw the faces of the soldiers, including his own brothers, filled with dread. He couldn't believe it. Who was this guy to insult the armies of the living God? When he spoke, his outrage and confusion were met with disdain from his oldest brother, Eliab. "Why did you even come down here? And who did you leave those few measly sheep with? I know your arrogance and the wickedness of your heart. You came down here just to watch the battle." But David, unfazed, simply replied, "What have I done now? Can't a person say anything?" He continued to ask the soldiers about the bounty for slaying the giant, his resolve strengthening with every fearful glance he received. Soon, his words reached King Saul, who, desperate, agreed to see the boy. David stood before the king, a mere youth with no armor or sword. "Don't worry about this giant," he told Saul with calm conviction. "I'll go and fight him myself." Saul looked at him, probably thinking this was a sick joke. "You can't do it," he said. "You're just a boy. This guy has been a warrior since he was a kid." But David's faith was his secret weapon, and he told the king of his past triumphs. "Your servant has been keeping his father's sheep. When a lion or a bear came and carried off a sheep from the flock, I went after it, struck it, and rescued the sheep from its mouth. When it turned on me, I seized it by its hair, struck it, and killed it." David continued, his voice ringing with absolute certainty. "The Lord who saved me from the paw of the lion and the paw of the bear will save me from the hand of this Philistine." It was a bold, crazy claim, but it was spoken with such simple truth that Saul, running out of options, finally agreed. The moment came, and a hush fell over the valley, a heavy silence broken only by the clanking of Goliath's armor. King Saul had tried to give David his own royal armor, but the heavy bronze felt alien and constricting. It was too big, too cumbersome, a symbol of a warrior he wasn't. David took it off, deciding to face his fate with only what he knew: faith and a shepherd's tools. He walked down from the Israelite encampment and crossed the valley, his footsteps soft against the dry earth. On the way, he stopped at a small stream. With careful, deliberate movements, he selected 5 smooth, flat stones, each one perfect for a slingshot. He placed them in his leather shepherd's bag and took his trusty slingshot in his hand. Goliath watched the small figure approach, his face visible under his helmet, contorted into a sneer of contempt. He could not believe this was his opponent, a mere child, not even armed with a sword. "Am I a dog that you come at me with sticks?" he roared, his voice a mocking echo that reverberated against the valley walls. The Philistine army erupted in a collective roar of laughter, but the Israelite army remained silent, their hearts in their throats. "Come here and I'll feed your flesh to the birds and the wild animals," Goliath bellowed, raising his massive spear. But David stood his ground, his gaze steady and unwavering. He was not intimidated by the giant's size or his threats. His voice, though not as loud, carried a quiet confidence that was more powerful than any weapon. "You come to me with a sword, a spear, and a javelin," David replied. "But I come to you in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied." The tension was unbearable as the two figures, so different in every way, closed the distance. Goliath, a massive, clanking fortress of a man, lumbered forward, his feet shaking the ground with each step. David, light on his feet and agile, charged with a swiftness that the giant could not match. David reached into his bag, his fingers finding a single smooth stone, and loaded his sling. He began to spin it, the leather cord whipping through the air with an increasingly high-pitched whistle. The sound was the only thing heard by the thousands of onlookers. With a practiced, powerful motion, he let the stone fly. It was a tiny projectile against a backdrop of metal, but it flew with the force of his faith and his years of practice. The stone spun through the air and struck Goliath squarely in the forehead, right in the one small opening between his helmet and his brow. The force was so great that the stone sank deep into his skull. The giant staggered, a look of pure shock and confusion on his face as his eyes glazed over. He let out a final, pained gasp as his massive body, a monument to arrogance, began to topple. With a final earth-shaking crash, he fell face-first to the ground, his bronze armor echoing the sound of his defeat. The valley went silent, stunned by the impossible. The two armies stared in disbelief. David, the small boy, had just taken down the giant. He ran to Goliath, took the giant's own sword from its sheath, and cut off his head. When the Philistines saw that their champion was dead, they broke and fled in terror. The Israelite army, suddenly filled with new courage, roared and chased after them. The victory was complete, and David became an instant hero. His one brave act of faith and courage had saved the entire nation. This incredible underdog story wasn't just a moment of glory, it was the turning point in his life. The boy who was once an anonymous shepherd was now a living legend. And this single, perfect shot set him on the path to one day become the King of Israel himself.